the Minister has declined my suggestion to link fare adjustments to service reliability. How then will commuters be assured that fare increases will lead to tangible improvements in service reliability?
If you hold back on the fare increases, which are supposed to reflect the overall operating costs facing the public transport system, and there's a chronic shortfall over time, that could then further erode service quality and reliability.
I think many Singaporeans would like the Minister to explain the difference between this breakdown and the 2011 breakdown when a COI was called, and what made the Minister conclude that these two breakdowns are different and a COI is not required this time.
In 2011, the MKBF for our MRT system was 60,000+ train kilometers. Today, as I shared earlier, all the lines are above our target of at least 1 million MKBF. The structural integrity of the trains was assessed by an independent assessor in 2012, who concluded that the trains have a total service life of 38 years. The reliability of a train depends on several factors, and not only on its age alone. Trains that remain reliable can continue to be used if they have not exceeded their service life. In 2018 and 2020, after discussions with SMRT, LTA purchased a total of 106 new R151 trains to replace the North-South and East-West lines' earliest generations of trains, including the KHI fleet. The delivery of these trains, however, was delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic. These trains have been arriving in batches after rigorous testing. The first batch of 3 trains was handed over to SMRT and put into service in June 2023. Since then, LTA has been progressively handing over new R151 trains to SMRT at a rate of about 2 trains per month. 34 R151 trains have been handed over to SMRT so far. The plan is to replace all the KHI trains with the new R151 trains by end 2026, before they reach their 38-year service mark. Train commuters exiting at stations between Boon Lay and Queenstown stations were not charged for their rail journeys. Bridging bus services and regular bus services along the stretch were also provided at no cost to commuters. SimplyGo has been processing refunds in cases where commuters were charged for 2 journeys instead of 1 due to them exceeding 45 minutes for transfers between train and bus services or between different bus services. Commuters may approach SimplyGo for assistance if they have specific queries about their fares. Regardless of the investigation outcome, SMRT will bear the costs of providing the free bridging buses and regular bus services. The foregone fare revenue during the disruption and the repair works. This requirement applies to both rail operators should they encounter a disruption along their respective lines. Safety is critical for MRT systems. We will not compromise safety. There are multiple layers of safety controls. As regulator, LTA imposes stringent safety standards aligned to international best practices that operators must comply with. Operators who do not meet these standards will be subject to penalties, and where necessary, they will face additional regulatory conditions and monitoring. Safety and reliability go hand in hand. In 2012, the mean kilometers between failure, or what is called the MKBF, for the MRT network, which is a reliability benchmark used by cities globally, was 67,000 train kilometers. This was in 2012. This increased steadily over the decade as LTA worked with rail operators to enhance their maintenance regimes. Through the combined efforts of LTA and the operators, and supported by our unions and workers, we achieved our MKBF target of at least 1 million train kilometers in 2019, and have maintained that since for all MRT lines, including the East-West line. This is comparable to the most reliable overseas metros.
So, given the higher maintenance costs and failure rates of the first-generation trains, can the Minister explain why they were not replaced earlier? And what factors delayed the replacement process? For example, were any of the new trains delivered but not immediately put into service? Secondly, the Minister has declined my suggestion to link fare adjustments to service reliability. How then will commuters be assured that fare increases will lead to tangible improvements in service reliability? For example, how much of the fare revenue increase is allocated specifically towards improving service reliability?
The schedule was delayed due to COVID-19, but I also provided the assurance that all of the first generation, the older trains, will be replaced before they reach the 38 service mark. So this is still within their service life, and they will be replaced before that 38-year service mark is reached. Can we speed up on the new trains to try and catch up on the delays due to COVID earlier? This is certainly something that we will do our best, but I also hope Mr. Giam agrees we need to do so without compromising safety, so the trains that come will have to be tested thoroughly before they are put into service. I accept that Mr. Giam may have a different view, and I respect that, but I hope Mr. Giam understands that we use different tools to achieve different objectives. So for service reliability, we will keep track of the performance, and if the operator were to miss their service quality benchmarks, their reliability benchmarks, they could miss out on receiving certain incentive payments. Or if there are lapses and investigations are conducted and there are lapses, they could also face penalties. So there are incentives for the operator to improve their reliability and to maintain a high level of service quality. If we were to incorporate this element into fares, and as I said, I understand where Mr. Giam and some members of the public are coming from. I understand and I respect your point of view, Mr. Giam, but there are some downsides to doing that as well. Because if you hold back on the fare increases, which are supposed to reflect the overall operating costs facing the public transport system, and there's a chronic shortfall over time, that could then further erode service quality and reliability, which I'm sure we do not want to see that happen. If you say, no, let's not do that, let's ask government to provide a top-up, then effectively we are asking taxpayers to fund the shortfall. So there are some trade-offs, and the PTC, after considering the different perspectives, have decided that we will separate the two things, but to hold the operators accountable and to incentivize them to achieve high reliability standards through other ways.
First of all, I think many Singaporeans would like the Minister to explain the difference between this breakdown and the 2011 breakdown when a COI was called, and what made the Minister conclude that these two breakdowns are different and a COI is not required this time. My second SQ, does the Minister think that a new COI for this breakdown as well would be useful for us to confirm that all the findings and the remedial actions recommended by the 2011 COI has been implemented till today?
I have explained earlier that the investigations that will be done by LTA with help from, or with inputs from the expert advisory panel, and also the investigations that will be done by TSIB will both be done thoroughly. So that is the commitment that we have made to the public, that the investigations will be done thoroughly and the findings will be released publicly, and we will identify what are the root causes to the incident and what are the areas for improvement. And if you look at the operating situation in 2011 versus today, in 2011, the MKBF for our MRT system was 60,000+ train kilometers. Today, as I shared earlier, all the lines are above our target of at least 1 million MKBF. In 2011, the incident that happened, the context and the situation was not the same. Mr. Leong may remember, in between 2011 and now, we also had other serious MRT-related incidents. There was a flooding at Bishan. There was an incident at Joo Koon. And for those incidents, we did not convene a COI, but LTA conducted a thorough investigation for each of them and then learn from what happened to see how we can improve. I would explain to Mr. Leong that if we didn't implement the recommendations for improvements since 2011, that COI due to the incident in 2011, I don't think our overall reliability could have improved from 60,000+ in those days to more than 1 million for all lines today. This does not mean that we think we have arrived and therefore become complacent, certainly not. There's always room for improvement. This is still a work in progress. We still want to do better. So this is what we will do, but we, based on our assessment, LTA has, as regulator, the necessary expertise and powers to conduct a thorough investigation.
I've noticed that there have been comments on social media that the East-West line disruption occurred because the chairman of SMRT had claimed in June 2023 that they did not want over-maintenance. So can I seek the minister's views on this, and if minister also can share about our relations in terms of the One Transport family with our rail operators. And I think in summary, how is the balance struck, again, between the cost of over-maintenance and the prevention of avoidable disruption incidents?
After the remarks made by Mr. Siah Moon Meng, SMRT chairman, in June 2023, Mr. Siah clarified with LTA that SMRT did not reduce its spending on maintenance over the past few years. His main point was about striking a balance between achieving high reliability standards and incurring high maintenance costs to achieve what he described as optimal maintenance. So with the 1 million MKBF target in place, SMRT's spending on maintenance for the north-south and east-west lines has remained steady over the past few years. SMRT has also invested in building up its engineering and technical capabilities under Mr. Siah's chairmanship, and it has embarked on initiatives using its own resources to further improve rail reliability. Mr. Speaker, I have seen some of these social media posts that Mr. Satyandi mentioned, and allow me to say that these can be rather misleading because they selectively quoted certain comments rather than reflect the full context and the full story. In fact, Mr. Siah had said, and this was reported by the mainstream media in 2023, that SMRT would, in his words, never want to under-maintain because he wanted to avoid the reliability issues of the past. So, sir, this is an example to remind ourselves the importance of understanding the full context, what happened, so that we don't get misled by certain social media posts or comments, and then we arrive at the wrong conclusions. Thank you.